Welcome to another exciting episode of Norfolk Mountains. We've come down in the valley today between the mighty Ongar Hill, which is out that way, and the mighty Walpole Hill, which is out that way. So we feel a bit of a fraudsters today because we're in the valleys, but we've got a great story for you today. So come on, let's go.
For viewers of a certain age, you'll remember a comedy programme about the Home Guard called Dad's Army. Obviously, being a comedy, they made out these chaps to be blithering buffoons, as funny as that might have been. In reality, the Home Guard were a professional bunch of locals. Some of them would have seen action in World War I, and some of them would have been really fit for working on the land. All volunteers, all looking after the home, whilst everybody was at war. This is a particular story about one Home Guardsman and what they found in Hay Green.
The first report was that Corporal Buffon saw the Ju-88 in distress silhouetted. Now we know across that way there was searchlights going up, so we assume, and it's always a danger to assume anything, that it crossed the stream of a searchlight so they could see it silhouetted. So he dispatched one of his gang back over there to the HQ at Lovell Hall to call for assistance. And then they proceeded with three of the troop this way to the crash site. As far as we can work out from the reports, that it was at this point here that Walter Buffon and his crew looked into this field and saw a nearly intact Ju-88. They were alerted by two Germans coming towards them with their hands raised, shouting "Dock" and pointing at the aircraft.
On reaching the downed aircraft, they noticed that there was another German injured still inside. They carefully freed him, and Walter sent two of his guys to go and get a gate to use as a makeshift stretcher. During all of this, they noticed that one of the Germans was edging towards the plane, fumbling in his pocket for a lighter or a cigarette, with only one thing in mind.
So Walter saw this German with the matches, and he clearly had one intention of setting fire to the plane. So Walter immediately said, "Hands up!" to stop him in his tracks. Now, the plane in question is a Ju-88 C4, and it's the first one that's been intact in British hands, and it's only just been released. There is a wealth of information on the plane. There'll be radio frequencies, code books, maps, and how the frequencies they can later use to get the correct length of window from the antennas, so they could make it more effective. Absolutely fascinating, the aerial warfare and radar and everything they had on board, and that's another story in itself. But Walter helped to protect such vital information. So the three German prisoners, as they now became, were Oberlieutenant Kurt Hermann, Unterofficer Engelbert Bottner, and Feldwebel Wilhelm Ruppel. But what was your name?
Don't tell him. Pike. The interesting thing so far in this story is the professionalism of all involved. The Dad's Army programme of the 1970s would have you all believe that the Home Guard was a bunch of blithering idiots. But in reality, they were professionals. They took this role very seriously. Some of them were soldiers from World War I. So now Walter has got one German injured and attached to a stretcher. He's got 2 Germans in custody. The only place that would be open would be the Plough Inn, which is half a mile in this direction. So that's where we're headed now. We'll follow in their footsteps now.
So when Walter Buffum had rounded up the 3 prisoners, they ended up bringing them here to the old Plough House, which was a pub in those days. It's one of 34 pubs that used to be in residence in Terrington. But the procedure was, once you had your prisoners, you had to hand them over to the police. So they brought them in here and they had a beer before they handed them over to the police, which is my favourite sort of war story. 2 men in a pub drinking a beer. Okay, so we're in the wilds of Norfolk and I'm with Trevor.
Hey, pleased to meet you.
Yeah, and Trevor is the owner of the old Plough, and he's been the owner since 1996.
1996, yeah. Yeah, we moved here. It was in poor state of repair when we moved in, and we spent 4 or 5 years renovating it.
So you like do it yourself then? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I'm not sure whether I like it or was forced into it, yeah.
Yes. Well, Trevor is confirms that this Ju-88 was reported to him of crashing in the field just behind us, and that was in the 10th of March 1941.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know the date when it happened, yeah.
And then the 3, there's one on a stretcher and the 2 other people were taken into the Plough to be handed over to the police, where they had a beer before they were incarcerated.
Yeah, I've heard the story about how they were held under house arrest here until I think, was it Sutton Bridge or what? Troops were from Sutton Bridge to arrest them?
It had to be the constabulary.
Oh, constabulary was it? Yeah.
You couldn't hand them over to the military in case someone got a bit trigger happy.
Yeah.
So it was always the police.
Ah, that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. And you've got an interesting story about the propeller that may have come off.
Sadly, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he lived over in the village there, and we'd done some work for him. We were doing some kitchen work for him, and he said his grandfather obviously came down during the crash and helped the people out of the plane, and then at night time him and another chap came down and stole the propeller, or one of the propellers, and took it back and hung it in his barn, and it stayed there for a number of years until in the, I think it was early 70s or late 60s, when chainsaws came out. He practiced cutting it up on a chainsaw. So that was the end of the propeller.
Yes. Oh well, that will be off someone's wish list then.
Yeah.
Anyway, Trevor, thank you very much, and thanks very much for permission to fly the drone on your land, and
That's
much appreciated.
Yeah, my pleasure.
There's no better way of ending a story and we believe the prisoners were treated to an ale on the house, as well as the Home Guard, who we know that Mr. Buffum became a bit of a local celebrity for his endeavours that night, and well worth it. No better way to end in a pub with a few beers at the end of a story.
For more war stories, don't forget to follow us. We've got our Instagram, our Facebook page, but most of all, we've got our YouTube page. So like and subscribe and you'll get more of these war stories. And this war story can be read about in a little book called Air Raid. So what a fantastic way to end our show today. At a pub, thinking about a couple of blokes back in World War II having a beer. Absolutely brilliant. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Norfolk Mountains. Whistle while you work. Hitler is a twerp. He's half balmy, so's his army. Hitler is a twerp.